What's going on, guys? My name is Josh and I am back with another NBA video. Yesterday, the Indiana Pacers absolutely shocked the basketball world as they traded Paul George to the Oklahoma City Thunder. This trade was a surprise to everyone because for weeks, we heard all the rumors. Paul George to Cleveland, Paul George to Boston, Paul George to LA, but none of that even happened. He will now be teaming up with the reigning MVP Russell Westbrook, and they're going to be a pretty good team for hopefully the next season. Now, this trade had a lot of implications around the league and a lot of teams were affected. So in this video, I will be talking about the winners and the losers of the Paul George trade. So without further ado, here we go. So let's begin with the losers. Loser number 1, the Boston Celtics. The Celtics lost a couple of times this week. They have an abundance of draft picks and assets, and every single time a superstar is on the market, the Celtics are always in the discussion. But to this day, no deals have been done. I mean, if you take a look at the last year, the Celtics were in the talk for Kevin Durant, DeMarcus Cousins, Jimmy Butler, and now Paul George. And fast forward a year, and just like that, KD joined the Warriors, DeMarcus got traded to the Pelicans, Jimmy Butler to the Timberwolves, and now Paul George to the Thunder. Now, not getting Butler didn't sting the Celtics that much since they knew that Paul George was still available. But now with Paul George going to the Thunder, that's no longer a possibility. And to make everything worse, Blake Griffin also re-signed with the LA Clippers, so another free agent that the Celtics were looking at is no longer available as well. So now you have Danny Ainge back in the same exact situation he was in last year, with a whole bunch of draft picks, some nice young players, and a shot at a top free agent. Last year it was Kevin Durant, and this year it's Gordon Hayward. And just last night, Woj reported that Hayward is leaning towards re-signing with the Utah Jazz since he can sign for a max contract there. Not too long ago, it really did seem like Danny Ainge could create another super team in Boston because he was in position to make serious plays for both Hayward and either George or Griffin. That easily would have taken the team one more step closer to defeating the Cavs in the Eastern Conference. But instead, the Celtics miss out on yet another superstar. But let's take a look at the one silver lining. PG could have walked away next year for nothing because he made it clear that he wants to play for the LA Lakers. So maybe that's a win for the Celtics, but to be honest, I think the Celtics are definitely losers in this trade. Loser number 2, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jimmy Butler to the Wolves, Paul George to the Thunder, and Kevin Love is still in Cleveland. Don't get me wrong, Love is an all-star level talent and has been an important piece for this Cavs team, a team that won a championship just 1 year ago. But if the Cavs want a better chance to beat the Warriors with Kevin Durant, Kevin Love needs to be exchanged for Paul George. I mean, the Cavs are still the best team in the East and they will most likely make it to another finals. But the Cavs are losers for the simple fact that they were unable to trade for such an important piece that they seemingly had in their fingertips. There were a lot of rumors going around the NBA that the Cavs were in talks involving a third team in this Paul George trade. There were rumors saying that the Cavs would acquire the 4th pick from Phoenix and then send that 4th pick to Indiana. And then most recently there were talks that the Cavs were going to acquire 2 first-round picks and Gary Harris for the Denver Nuggets to send to Indiana in a 3-team trade to acquire Paul George. But none of that even happened. The offers were there and the deals were there, but Indiana just wasn't interested. And whether Kevin Pritchard just didn't want to give the Cavs Paul George or he wanted to find a better deal, I think Kevin Love, at the end of the day, is going to be better than Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. This is just my opinion. Because Kevin Love is a proven star. He's an all-star, and he had some ridiculously good seasons back in Minnesota, putting up over 26 points a game. And in Cleveland, he struggled, but that's what will happen when you're a third option on a championship team. But nevertheless, Kevin Love is a champion. I mean, who knows if Oladipo and Sabonis will ever make an all-star team? Kevin Love has already made 4. So it's no doubt that Kevin Love would have been a better package than Oladipo and Sabonis. And looking at the Cavs, their only tradable asset with value is Kevin Love because guys like Channing Frye, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert all have unappealing contracts that very few teams actually want to take on. They wanted George and they couldn't get him. Now, it may be too soon to talk about it, but this very well might lead to LeBron's departure next offseason if the Cavs lose another championship to the Warriors. But like I mentioned, the Cavs are still the favorites to win the Eastern Conference, but they are easily one of the losers in the Paul George trade. And loser number 3, the Indiana Pacers. The last few weeks of Paul George rumors have been absolutely insane. It's involved teams like the Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the LA Lakers, and the Houston Rockets just for a little bit. Now, all of this trade buzz seemed to indicate that there was actually a decent market for Paul George, but this was not the case. This was nothing but disappointing for the Indiana Pacers. You have a once-in-a-generation star in Paul George, and you lose him for Oladipo and Sabonis. And Oladipo and Sabonis are good players, but they are no Paul George. I mean, Oladipo is only 25 years old, and he had a pretty good season this year. He shot 36.1% from 3, and he played pretty well considering he was playing under the spotlight of an MVP player in Russell Westbrook. And maybe he'll sell some tickets since Oladipo did go to the University of Indiana, and that's his hometown. But his upside is hindered by the fact that he's on a $21 million contract for the next 4 years. And Indiana, if they want to win, they need him to develop, and they need him to develop fast. They also acquire Sabonis in the deal, and Sabonis looked pretty good to begin the season. But as the season progressed, his shooting numbers got worse, and I don't know if it was his confidence got worse or what the deal was, but Sabonis' game didn't look well towards the end of the season. Nevertheless, Sabonis is a great rebounder and a great scorer, and the one big thing he has to improve is his post scoring. But besides that, Sabonis has a lot of upside. But the best thing about this deal is that the Pacers can now tank hard for the next couple of years. I mean, this is an organization that hasn't really tanked in a while. And they've always been a middle of the pack team, and as you know, that is the worst place to be in the NBA because you aren't going to win a championship and you aren't going to get a high draft pick. And being in the middle is easily a spot you don't want to be in. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see which direction Kevin Pritchard wants to take this organization. If they want to rebuild, then they're probably going to end up trading guys like Thaddeus Young and Monte Ellis just to clear up some cap room and just creating a younger team that can compete for a championship years and years down the road after they tank a little bit. But we'll see what happens to this team, but it's clear that Paul George wasn't going to be an Indiana Pacer for much longer, and in all honesty, I think the Pacers could have got a much better deal for George, but this is the deal, this is what they're going to have to live with, and it'll be interesting to see how this team performs for the next couple of years because they have some good pieces. Miles Turner, they just drafted TJ Leaf, so we'll see what happens to this team in the future, but as of right now, the Pacers are the biggest losers in this trade. Now, before I get to the winners, or winner I should say, there is one team that's in a neutral position, and that's the LA Lakers. The Lakers didn't win or lose this trade, and PG made it very clear that he wanted to sign with them in the 2018 offseason, so it didn't make a lot of sense for the Lakers to dump all of their valuable assets in exchange for a guy who could join the team in just 1 year. And the good thing is, Paul George was traded to a team that won't be contending for a championship next year because let's be honest, in order for the Thunder to win a championship, they would have to be better than the Spurs with Kawhi Leonard, the Rockets with Harden and CP3, a Minnesota team with Jeff Teague, Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, and Andrew Wiggins, and then they gotta be a Warriors team with 4 All-Stars. I mean, there's a very huge possibility that we may see Paul George pull a Dwight Howard and leave the Thunder after just 1 year, but only time will tell, so that's why the Lakers are in a neutral position at the moment. And winner number 1, and the only winner on this list, the Oklahoma City Thunder. The 1-year anniversary of losing Kevin Durant is on the 4th of July, and fast forward 1 year, the Oklahoma City Thunder have somewhat recovered. George isn't quite on the level of a Kevin Durant, but he's easily a star player who can guard the league's best wing players and is a talented player on and off the ball. This is such a great move for general manager Sam Presti, who has made some questionable decisions in the past, but for the most part, he's built a really good team in Oklahoma over the past few years. I mean, this team lost James Harden in 2013, then they lost Durant last year. But besides that, Presti practically turned Serge Ibaka into Paul George. Because if you look at it, Presti traded Serge Ibaka for Sabonis and Victor Oladipo, and then he flipped that exact deal for Paul George. Now, like I mentioned, George doesn't immediately vault the Oklahoma City Thunder into championship contention, but he does make the roster so much better. Because there were so many times last year where Westbrook would go to the bench and then the entire Thunder team fell apart. But now adding another scorer who can absolutely carry and dominate games, Paul George is a great fit for this Oklahoma City Thunder team. Now, the only downside of this whole Paul George trade is that he may walk away in a year, but it's not all that bad because at the end of the day, it will clear up a ton of cap space for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Maybe George stays after 1 year, maybe he enjoys his time in Oklahoma, but Only time will tell, and even if George decides to walk away, I mean, the Thunder have two options. They could either part ways with Westbrook and begin to rebuild again, or they could try to sign more free agents and try to form a better team around Russell Westbrook. But what the Thunder did acquiring Paul George is pretty amazing, and that's why they are the single winners of this trade. So those were the winners and the losers of the Paul George trade. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This trade absolutely caught me by surprise. I did not expect this to happen. I was expecting him to go to Cleveland or Boston, but I did not expect him to end up in Oklahoma City Thunder of all places. I'm so excited to watch the Thunder's first game this year with Westbrook and Paul George on the same team. It's going to be so exciting. So with that being said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you are new and want to see more NBA and basketball content, and also hit that like button if you enjoyed. But that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.